Welcome to the Indiana Department of Education's 2024-2025 All-Staff Test Security and Integrity Training. Although this training primarily highlights information for test administrators, TAs, and proctors, all school staff must complete test security training to ensure they are aware of test security procedures and requirements. This awareness will be helpful in the event that staff are asked to engage in activities that could be a violation, or if staff observe and need to report a violation. This slide shares the agenda for the topics that will be covered during this training. Please take a moment to review the variety of topics that will be covered. The first topic for today's training is Key Test Security Resources. There are several key test security documents. Documents and resources related to test security that are listed on this slide have been updated for the new school year. Please carefully review these important documents and contact your school test coordinator or corporation test coordinator with any questions. All Indiana school staff, everyone except the bus drivers, are required to be trained in test security and integrity and sign the Test Security and Integrity Agreement by September 30th annually. TAs in schools that have opted in to pilot the iLearn through-year checkpoints this school year are reminded that the first checkpoint opens on September 16th. All affected TAs will need to ensure training is completed prior to the checkpoint opening. Last year, IDOE converted paper-based forms to JOT forms. This school year, testing irregularity reports, TIRs, testing concerns and security violation reports, and social media and/or unallowable device concern reports will continue to be submitted electronically via a JOT form link. At the time of submission, CTCs will receive a printable copy of their report. This new electronic system eliminates the need to scan and/or fax your reports to IDOE. Look for more information and training on using these new JOT forms closer to the opening of test windows. Next, we will discuss various roles and responsibilities with statewide assessments. Test administrators, TAs, must hold an instructional, administrative, or school services license granted by IDOE. Staff with an emergency Indiana license in one of these three areas or a transition to teaching permit can also serve as TAs. Current legislation has also approved the following licensure and permits to serve as TAs: Workplace Specialist License, Career Specialist Permit, Charter School License, ABCTE Permit, and Alternative Special Education License. TAs play a critical role in testing. As such, it is important to be aware of the responsibilities associated with this role. A checklist was developed to assist TAs with understanding the various tasks for which they are responsible. The Assessment User Roles and Responsibilities Checklist is available in the Indiana Assessments Policy Manual, Appendix G, on the assessment website. The diagram on the left-hand side of the slide summarizes a few of the key test security responsibility areas for test administrators. TAs must do the following: complete all applicable test administration, test security, and test accommodations training, review test administrators' manuals, TAMs, and the Indiana Assessment Policy Manual prior to testing, monitor students during testing, follow security regulations for pickup and return of secure assessment materials for online and for paper and pencil testing, accounting for all secure assessment materials before, during, and after testing. And finally, TAs must immediately report to the School Test Coordinator, STC, any missing assessment materials, interruptions, invalidations, test irregularities, or security concerns. TAs should review the Indiana Assessments Policy Manual, Assessment User Role and Responsibility Checklist, and TAMs for more details regarding their responsibilities. School staff that do not hold an appropriate license, like teachers' aides, support staff, or substitute teachers, may only serve as proctors, not TAs. Unlicensed personnel cannot supervise testing without a TA being present. As outlined on the right-hand side of the slide, proctors also have key responsibilities related to testing. While some of these responsibilities are shared here, additional responsibilities are outlined in detail throughout the Indiana Assessments Policy Manual. Please be sure to review this resource for more information. There are several things that CTCs and/or STCs will need to review, verify, or reinforce before, during, and after testing. The first training a CTC will provide is the Fall All-Staff Test Security Training you are currently viewing. All school staff must complete this training and sign the Test Security and Integrity Agreement by September 30th. In addition to the Fall All-Staff Test Security Training, TAs and proctors must complete several other trainings prior to each assessment window. iLearn, IAM, and iRead3 TAs must annually complete a TA certification course in Cambium's system prior to testing. Please note that the IAM TA certification course is separate and different than the courses from the other programs. All TA certifications must be valid as of the time of testing. TAs cannot sign in to administer tests under another TA's certification credentials, as this is a test security violation and would put students' tests at risk of invalidation. WIDA TAs must successfully complete the training courses that correspond with each of the WIDA assessments they are responsible for administering. See the WIDA assessment guidance for details. College Board test coordinators, proctors, and other test day staff will complete online training through their College Board professional account. Mandatory training includes online modules specific to their testing role. Proctor training is mandatory for all educators serving as proctors per IDOE policy. Proctors must provide STCs with a copy of their certification of completion. There are also local trainings that must be completed. IDOE pretest workshops will first be uploaded to the Test Coordinator Corner course on Moodle 2 weeks prior to the start of the test administration window. Once CTCs complete the pretest workshop, they will present the information in the training to STCs and/or TAs. TAs and proctors must complete test administration, accommodations, and refresher test security training provided by their CTC or STC prior to each assessment window. Before testing, TAs must communicate test security protocols with students in order to prevent potential invalidations due to violations. A few of these communication topics are listed on this slide. For example, students should be reminded that they cannot do the following: discuss, rephrase, or paraphrase test questions, materials, in person, by phone, via email, texting, or social media, or any other communication method with anyone, including but not limited to other students. Access cell phones, smartwatches, or any other unauthorized device during testing, or take pictures, snapshots, or videos of any test materials, practice or operational. Please review the Indiana Assessments Policy Manual for more details. Section 6, Part B, Number 1. Monitoring is required by IDOE during all statewide assessments. TAs and proctors must continually monitor students during testing. Consequently, it is important that they give test administration their full attention. It is not acceptable for TAs and/or proctors to leave students unsupervised for any amount of time, to concentrate on other tasks or materials, or to otherwise ignore what is happening. TAs and proctors need to walk around the testing room, actively monitoring students throughout test sessions. Students must be monitored to ensure they follow directions, do not exchange answers with others, use only allowable materials and devices, and do not interfere with or distract others. Please review the Indiana Assessments Policy Manual for more details. Section 6, Part C, Number 5. CTCs and STCs or their designees also have monitoring responsibilities during testing. Prior to the start of testing, CTCs, STCs, or designees must monitor testing rooms to ensure that rooms are free from unallowable resources. Reference material with educational information like multiplication tables, vocabulary definitions, parts of speech, examples of student work, etc., should be covered or removed prior to testing. It is also important that CTCs or STCs keep a record of rooms that have been checked and follow up with rooms where violations were found. Should your school be chosen for monitoring, documentation of local monitoring of test rooms is box 10 of the assessment monitoring checklist. CTCs, STCs, or designees must monitor testing rooms during testing to ensure TAs and proctors are adhering to test administration and test security protocols with fidelity. These visits must be documented in a log with the date and time monitoring occurred, per box 11 of the assessment monitoring checklist. As a reminder, staff are not allowed to have access to cell phones, smartwatches, or other devices while in the testing room. Remember that it is never okay to take a picture or screenshot of any testing materials or screens. It is important that student accommodations are correct in the school's SIS and tied prior to testing. Starting a test with or without accommodations a student is due could result in invalidations for that student. TAs must also be trained in the accommodations available for the test they will be administering. All tests have accommodations, but the accommodation names may be different or function differently from test to test. It's important that CTCs or STCs provide training on accommodations prior to testing. The purpose of IDOE monitoring is to ensure schools are appropriately implementing test administration and test security protocols. Schools are identified for monitoring based on previously submitted test irregularities, test security concerns, failure of a CTC to complete required training by designated deadlines, failure to return secure test materials by required deadlines, data forensic analysis concerns, and a random sample derived from Indiana demographic data. Please be sure to review Section 2 in the Indiana Assessments Policy Manual as well as the Assessment Monitoring Checklist in Appendix B for more information. There are a number of things staff may mistakenly or intentionally do during testing that are considered inappropriate actions. As a reminder to staff, it is not appropriate to take the actions that are listed on this slide. One additional note that should be mentioned is related to the coaching text at the bottom of this slide. Even if a TA or proctor does not provide the correct answer to a student, but provides tips, refers to prior lessons completed or classroom examples, or shares that an answer is incorrect, this is coaching and is not appropriate. CTCs need to also inform STCs they must remind staff it is not appropriate to implement the actions listed on this slide. When giving an assessment, it is important that TAs read exactly what is in the say box verbatim. When TAs deviate from the scripted directions, irregularities often occur. If a concern arises regarding the functionality of a test item, CTCs should establish a protocol to pause the test, document the time if applicable, and have TAs contact the STC or CTC. During such communication, TAs should only refer to the item by sharing the assessment name, grade level, content area, session, section, or segment number and item number. Never email, text, photograph, video, or post a copy of the item, a paraphrased item, or answer choices, not even to IDOE or a vendor. The STC or CTC will then notify IDOE or the testing vendor if warranted based on the concern. Discussing test items before, during, or after testing is not appropriate. Test items are not to be discussed unless and until the items are released on the website via the Released Items Repository, RIR. As such, CTCs and STCs should ensure staff understand the following. Reviewing test questions with students is not acceptable until or unless IDOE releases the items by posting them on the website. And discussing, videoing, texting, photographing, emailing, or posting actual or paraphrased test questions is not acceptable until or unless IDOE releases the items by posting them on the website. A testing irregularity is an unexpected event that significantly disrupts the testing environment of one or more students. TAs should report irregularities to the STC or CTC immediately. If warranted, the CTC will then report the irregularity to IDOE by completing the TIR jot form. Please be sure to include the STNs of students affected by the irregularity. Common irregularities that were reported to IDOE that should be avoided this year include TAs not administering the operational test with the correct manual. CTCs and STCs need to ensure TAs have the proper manuals and scripts prior to testing, specifically the iRead3 secure script for paper testers. TAs need to confirm access to and review the appropriate manual prior to testing. TA error when starting or approving tests. This typically occurred when TAs did not verify they were approving the correct test for students before allowing students to proceed. TAs need to make sure they are starting or assigning the correct test. We saw many TIRs where the TA accidentally approved a PT test when they meant to approve a CAT. In some cases, the PT had to be invalidated due to the time students spent in the test prior to the TA realizing the error, or due to the TAs not alerting the STC or CTC when this mistake is made. CTCs and STCs should instruct their TAs to inform them immediately if they accidentally open a PT, as this action will start the clock on the student's opportunity to complete this task. It should be made clear to TAs during test administration training that, due to the timestamp on online tests, the PT clock starts the moment the TA approves the session, even in error. If they do not immediately report this mistake to the STC or CTC, students may lose their one opportunity to complete the PT. In most cases, if a PT is approved in error, a CTC will make the decision to allow students to complete the PT, which must be finished the day it is started. Students and staff with cell phones or other electronic devices in the testing room. When STCs are conducting local test administration training with staff, they should remind TAs that cell phones, iPads, smartwatches, etc. are not allowed in the testing room for students or staff. Schools should make an additional effort to inform students about the seriousness of invalidations and the repercussions for students and schools when tests are invalidated. Perhaps schools could establish consequences on the local level for students who fail to comply with this expectation. Accommodations not being updated prior to testing. When STCs are conducting local accommodations training, they should review how TAs can verify before testing that students will receive the appropriate accommodations and the need to ensure they receive those accommodations during testing. Lastly, TAs should contact their STC for guidance on test irregularities as soon as possible, rather than notifying STCs days or weeks after irregularities have occurred. Late notification to the STC and subsequently the IDOE can lead to invalidations that could have been avoided had follow-up been more prompt. All concerns regarding test security violations must be immediately reported to the CTC and STC and immediately reported by CTCs or STCs to IDOE. Waiting until after the assessment window is closed to report test security concerns is not appropriate. Failing to report a test security concern immediately to the CTC, STC, and/or IDOE is, in and of itself, a test security violation. Finally, test security violations must be investigated by appropriate corporation staff. This slide shares common test security violations that were reported to IDOE that should be avoided this year. Let's discuss the first two violations listed on this slide. unallowable resources, and inappropriate use or access to cell phones. This includes students having access to multiplication charts, class notes or homework, or handheld calculators when they do not have that accommodation. As artificial intelligence apps become more prevalent, TAs should pay special attention to students as they are testing to ensure that they are not accessing sites like Photomath, ChatGPT, etc. TAs and proctors will need to establish and enforce local protocols for collecting and removing cell phones or other unallowable devices from the room before testing begins. This includes devices in the possession of the adults in the room. The only exception is if there is no other way to communicate, like a classroom phone. Remember, it is not appropriate for staff or students to review, discuss, video, text, post, photograph, or email actual or paraphrased test questions or content. Another common violation reported to IDOE was coaching. Remember, it is not appropriate to do the following: indicate in any way that an answer choice is correct or incorrect, should be reconsidered, or should be checked. Answer students' factual questions regarding test items or vocabulary, or say, do, or write anything on the board that is not explicitly described in manuals. The last common violation reported to IDOE is related to missing or late return of secure test materials. All test materials should be signed out and returned at the end of the testing session. CTCs and STCs are responsible for the inventory and tracking of test materials until they are returned to the test vendor. Be sure to follow the appropriate protocols for documented pickup and return of secure materials back to the STC. It is essential for all school staff to be familiar with appropriate assessment test security protocols. If you have questions about any local test security guidance or practices, please contact your CTC or STC in advance to minimize potential violations. This concludes this year's all-staff test security training. Please feel free to reach out to the Office of Student Assessment via the contact information presented on this screen. Thank you for reviewing this training. On behalf of the Indiana Department of Education, we wish you a successful school year.